And that's always kind of been my my thing on skiing. I do all kinds of different skiing. I'm not really good at any of them, but I have fun. And so, recreation isn't a competition. I know, like, I go out on the snow and I'm always seeing, at Mount Bachelor, they're always race training. There's always high school racers training at Meisner and different groups training at the Nordic Center. And I like to just go have fun. But when you recreate, you really need to stay within, your knowledge, skills, and abilities. If you've been out on skis twice, don't go ski around Crater Lake. Build up to that. And if you want to expand your knowledge, skills, and abilities, then make a plan and take some training and go out with somebody who knows a little more than you. But in the winter, the two really big threats when you're on the snow is snow immersion suffocation, which is tree wells, and avalanches. And with the snow we're getting now, tree wells are going to be an issue. And it's more of an issue for downhill skiers than cross-country skiers because they tend to have speed, and that when they fall, they go into the tree. But if you're cross-country skiing and you put your pole down in a tree well, you can fall over in it. And this is actually a dummy. This was some training, but that's kind of the way it ends up. And the Nordic Club website has a video of a really good tree well recovery, and it was a group they were actually doing some avalanche training, and as they skied down, somebody went in a tree well, and they've got the whole thing start to finish filmed, and it's pretty interesting. And the issue is it's not big trees, it's small trees. Any tree that has branches down at and below the snow surface is what you're looking for, because the snow just kind of comes in loosely around the tree limbs, and then when you fall in, all the snow starts coming around you. And the survival time for tree wells is similar to an avalanche burial, which means at 15 minutes, you've got a 50% chance of surviving. At 30 minutes, it's down to 5%. And there have been 6 snow immersion suffocation deaths at Mount Bachelor in the last year or the last decade. We've also, in the last 4 years, we've had 6 people die of avalanches, either in Central Oregon or people that were from Central Oregon. So it's an issue. And for avalanches in this area, we're in the maritime snowpack, and the snow is typically very stable, but it's stable right up to the point that it's not. And people get complacent because they go to the same place. The snow's always been good, and then they go up there on a day that conditions are different, and they can get in trouble. This was an actual photo from a fatality in that tree well. I don't remember where it was. And so, on the outings, I just came up with this. There's basically 5 phases. You're planning and prep, and if you're going to the same place you always go to, that may be a 2-minute plan, and you grab a few things and go. Or if you're going to a new place, you want to do a little research. The more complex the outing, the more you need to plan. Then you're driving to the snow park, which to me is the scariest part of an outing. It's also the second most likely way that you're going to get injured. Then walking from your vehicle to putting your feet on the snow is where 2/3 of injuries occur, is walking through a parking lot. At Crater Lake, at least 75% of the medical issues we dealt with were people falling in the parking lot. You get broken wrists, broken elbows, broken hips, and concussions. And it's at a time when you're thinking about the outing and you're not necessarily paying attention where your feet go. And then, the skiing and snowshoeing, or whatever your activity is, that's usually the easy part. And not that many people get hurt doing that. But once you're away from the snow park, if things go bad, that's when there's some pretty heavy consequences. And then the fifth part is, while you're out on the outing, monitor what you're doing and modify your outing. Don't get the mountain climber mentality of, I've got to get to the summit. No matter what, I've got to get to the summit. And so if you run into snow conditions you weren't expecting, just modify your event. This was an old safety matrix that when you're looking at outings, you have risk and you have consequences. And the one I like to think of is, if you're skiing the easy trails at the Nordic Center, it's pretty low risk. There's not much chance of you getting hurt. But if you get hurt, you're probably going to have a ski patroller there faster than an ambulance would come here tonight if we had an incident, because they're a quarter mile away with a snowmobile and a sled. If you're skiing in the Pumice Desert at Crater Lake, it's probably easier skiing than the Nordic Center, but there's no cell service. You're 2.5 to 5 miles away from the road. Then you got to drive to get cell service. Then the park no longer has a ski patrol, and they have 2 rangers, and there's only usually one on duty at a time. And they're going to have to call Jackson County Search and Rescue or Klamath. And so you're going to be there 6 hours before somebody gets there, probably. And same way, I saw a guy skiing off the summit at Crater Lake. He had retention straps on his cross-country skis, rode up there. Real good chance of getting hurt doing that. But there's ski patroller, within 5 minutes. If you're skiing some remote area, the west slopes of Lookout Mountain, they probably have cell service now, but that one you got to climb back up the mountain and then ski out and then drive and get cell service. So it's, help is a long ways off. So you have high consequence versus low consequence. And so, we carry a pack when we ski, and it performs the same function as, a helmet when you're biking, PFD when you're kayaking. Those things don't help you go through a rapid. The helmet doesn't help you descend. It doesn't help you climb on a bike. It's just there if you have a problem. And same with seat belts. Seat belts don't help you drive. They're there in case something goes wrong. And that's what the pack we carry is for. And so, this is the pack we want to carry, and this is the pack we want to have if we have an issue. And so, the compromise is somewhere in between. And it's different for everybody. And, the issue is when you get incapacitated, and which means, you're out away from the snow park and you can't move for whatever reason. And so, you're incapacitated if you get injured, you get hypothermic, you get sick. You weren't feeling good when you started, and then you get out about 4 miles and then figure out, oh, I guess when I visited my friend, they had the flu. Now I've got it. If you get severely fatigued, if you get lost, if you have equipment failure, if you get severe snow conditions, and these aren't just individual, they're they're cumulative, and if you get really bad snow conditions and that gets you fatigued, you get fatigued, and now you're more likely to get hypothermic or injured. And so there's kind of a sequence that goes along. And or there's any other thing that keeps you from getting back to the snow park. They didn't stop us that long, but oh no, it's some bison at Yellowstone. They were in the yeah, and this is taken with a zoom lens. I wasn't that close. And I took the picture because I thought, how fast can a bison run uphill in belly deep snow? And I found out the answer was really pretty fast. But I also found out with proper motivation, I can go up an even steeper hill pretty rapid myself. And any time you get incapacitated and stop moving, sooner or later you're going to get hypothermic. And that's the issue that, if you're out hiking in the summer and you twist an ankle or a knee, it's a pain, but you get out and it's not a huge deal. In the winter, that's a life-threatening event. And if you're, not being prepared, for unplanned incidents means that, you're betting your life that your outing is going to go as planned. And so, you always have that in the back of mind. There's the old saying about, hope for the best, plan for the worst. And, your gear and your pack is your bodyguard. Now, luckily, in Central Oregon, we've got a really good search and rescue unit. And part of it is, there's a lot of really physically fit, adventurous outdoor people, and a lot of them want to volunteer. And they also, because a lot of people recreate, they get a lot of experience. So they're very experienced at rescuing people. And I looked up in ambulance response times in Central Oregon. It looked to me like on average is about 10 to 12 minutes. And, longer if you're in a more remote area. And this is what search and rescue says is kind of a good day. This is how long it's going to take them to get to where you're at. So if you look at this, and for me doing search and rescue at Crater Lake, these are incredibly fast times. But the shortest ones are an hour and a half. And so I don't know about you, I can get really cold in an hour and a half. And one of the things they always say is, if you have an incident, don't wait to call 911. Call them. They're more than willing to turn around. But if you wait an hour and a half and then decide, oh, I guess we really do have a problem, now instead of them showing up within the next half hour, now you've got another 2 hours. And but anyway, the search and rescue units are, I think Deschutes, as near as I can tell, is one of the best, just because they, and one of the reasons is that they get a lot of work. And if you have to spend the night unplanned in the backcountry, there's 3 outcomes. You can survive the night and remain functional, which means you can participate in your rescue, and that when they show up, if you had to spend the night because your ski broke in half and you can't get out, if they bring a ski in, you put the ski on and you can ski out. If you survive but you're not functional, means that the only way you're getting out is you're getting in a sled and they're towing you out. And the third one, which is very feasible in the winter, is you don't survive. And there's a lot of people, if they're not prepared and they're out there overnight, there's a pretty high percentage of fatalities. I do want to go back. One other thing on this is if search and rescue does come and get you, and it's because your spouse called because you didn't check in, and search and rescue shows up, be nice. Don't start arguing with them about you don't need to be rescued. Just go along with them. They've just spent 2 hours taking time out of their day to come rescue you. Just be nice to them. And this is it's called a GAR assessment. This is what we used to use in search and rescue, but it's also good for outings. And GAR is just an acronym for green, amber, and red. And you kind of count up, these are the things you think about on an outing. Who's the trip leader? What kind of plan do you have? Who's on the trip? Like on Nordic Club events, we sometimes know most of the people, and sometimes we don't know hardly anybody. And and what's the group fitness? If you've got 5 people that are high-end athletes and somebody who hasn't skied for 4 years, and they gain 40 pounds while they weren't skiing, you've got a big disparity in group fitness. And do you have cell service? Do you have a personal locator beacon? Are you in an area that's got easy access for rescue? What kind of environment are you in? The terrain, the snow conditions, how long a trip. And so you just have to start weighing all that. And the shakier your outing, the more stuff you want to be prepared for. And so, the first one is, if you're going to go on avalanche terrain, the minimum is, avalanche beacon, shovel, and a probe. It's also nice to have a snow saw. I always have one if I'm going to go anywhere near avalanche terrain, because I use it to do snow stability tests. If you really want to go ski avalanche terrain, I'd recommend getting an airbag. But a lot of people that get airbags then think that this is going to save me. And a lot of people still die with airbags. It saves a lot of people, but it's not a for sure thing. And then back in the 1930s, the mountaineers out of Seattle came up with a 10 essentials list. And then in 2003, they updated it to 10 essential systems. And a couple of years later, they invented smartphones, which has changed a lot of the dynamics in the backcountry. So I've added kind of a subcategory, but you have navigation, sun protection, insulation, illumination, medical, fire or an external heat source, repair kit and tools, nutrition, hydration, and an emergency shelter. And essentially, indirectly, everything is geared towards keeping you warm, because that's what's going to keep you alive. And so navigation, until 2003, you relied on a paper map and a compass, an altimeter, a GPS. Now, pretty much everybody relies on their cell phone. It's always good, always recommended. Have a paper map as a backup, and a compass, because if you lose your phone, or the batteries die, and that's one of the things. If you have anything that runs on a battery, bring a charger or and appropriate cable, and spare batteries. And if you're relying on your phone for navigation, just because when you're sitting at home and you have internet and cell service and you're looking at a map, you may be looking at that map online. So make sure that map is actually downloaded to your phone. So the easiest way to do that is go to airplane mode and see if it comes up. And pretty much I rely on my cell phone now, but I still take paper maps, and now the newer cell phones, anything made in the last, I think, 3 years, if you don't have a cell signal, you can go into your settings and it'll pop up, connect to satellite, and you can text 911. And I've never done this, but as I read it, it sends your location and it sends that 911 signal to the closest 911 center. I've never had that verified by anybody, but eventually somebody will get it, and people can respond to that satellite message. But like my wife can't send me a text, but if I send her a text over the satellite, she can reply to that to me. And so my guess is within the next 4 or 5 years, the personal locator beacons are kind of going to fade out. The advantage of the personal locator beacons, they also run off a satellite, but I can turn it on and my wife can actually track where I'm going, which is a nice feature. And she can see if I've, have I moved? I'm late and I haven't moved for the last 5 hours. But anyway, navigation's a big one, because if you can't figure out where you're at, you're basically lost. And then communication is kind of the subcategory. Cell phones. Again, if you bring a device that runs on batteries, have backup batteries or a charger. And cell phones, it's always good to run them on airplane mode, because if you lose a cell signal, you use about 4 times as much battery, because your phone is constantly looking for a signal, so it uses up the battery. And I also don't like getting phone calls when I'm out in the woods. So and don't listen to a podcast and broadcast it, because you're using up the battery. And if that's what you're using as part of your rescue, and if you're going with somebody else and they're in charge, still take your cell phone as a backup. You can't have too many of them. Within a group, when we're backcountry skiing, quite often we take these family service radios. They've got their line of sight, but they're usually good within about a mile or so. So if you've got 8 people on an outing, and the Nordic Club, our policy is you always stop at every junction, because if you don't, somebody's going to take the wrong route. Well, if you just stopped 15 minutes ago and you've been waiting 15 minutes, if you've got a radio, you can figure out, if there's a problem, somebody can radio ahead and say, hey, we just broke a binding. You don't have to sit there and wait and then have somebody go back. So they're nice to have. Sun protection, just pretty simple. Sunglasses, some sunscreen. Even this time of year, if it's cloudy, I at least put sunscreen on my nose. And by middle of February, I put sunscreen on, because you're high elevation, you're getting reflection off the snow, off the sun. But one thing I learned the hard way is these glasses aren't prescription, and I didn't have my prescription glasses. I was trying to figure out where I was at. I could not read my phone. Luckily, I basically knew where I was at, but always take your reading glasses or something you can read your map or your phone with. And big one keeping you warm is insulation. At a minimum, take some kind of a puffy, and preferably with a hood, because you lose the majority of your the heat that you lose is out of your head, because that's, you know, all the other skin on your body is covered and your head is exposed. It's also a good way, if you're getting hot, take your hat off and you'll cool off. I always take a sit pad. This is one I've had since back in the 80s, and I've probably sat on it a dozen times, and it's been in my pack probably 1,000 times. But I always have it. These closed cell pads work good. This is a 3/4 inch blow up mattress, which is nice. It's compact, and I always take extra liner gloves and extra gloves, because if your hands get really cold, it doesn't matter what you've got in your pack. If your hands are really cold, you may not be able to operate the zipper on your pack and get to the stuff that's in. And I always take a Gore-Tex jacket. Take some kind of headlamp, and make sure you've got good batteries. I got a new one for Christmas that has a rechargeable battery, and it has replaceable rechargeable batteries. So I got a couple extras, so I can go. I like to go ski at night because it's fun, and there's not very many people out usually. So, but you always want to have a headlamp, because it gets dark early now. Looks like it's dark out there now, and it's 5 o'clock. Also, let's see. This is an illumination, but bring a whistle, and these, I forgot what the name of it is. It's a storm whistle. These things, when you blow it, you've got to cover your ears or you'll blow out your eardrums, but you can hear these, the little whistle that's on the pack strap. Sue could probably hear that from me blowing it here, but Kelly couldn't. I mean, and you want to whistle because if you're trying to yell to get somebody's attention, you yell about 5 times and you're exhausted. But you can blow a whistle for a really long time. And the kind of the international signal of distress is some three. You blow the whistle 3 times, and that's a signal of distress. Medical, in the winter, I've got like three or 4 first aid kits I have. I do trail work in the summer, and we're using axes and saws, and it's geared towards bleeding. It's tourniquet, quick clot, Israeli bandages, lots of gauze. In the winter, unless you have a compound fracture, there's not much to cut. It's got to go through jackets and base layers, but sprains, breaks, people do break things, and blisters are a big issue in the winter. And one of the problems with blisters is in the summer, if people start getting a hot spot, they stop and they'll put tape on the spot. In the winter, they don't tend to stop until it gets really bad, and now it's become an issue. So this is one of those things where a little preventative care. If you tend to get blisters on your heel, just tape your heel before you go and don't worry about it. So I take, the main things I have are a SAM splint, and there's vet wrap and Coban, which is, as near as I can tell, the same thing. It's just, if you get the vet wrap at a pet store, it's about half the price. And you can get colors. So I've used it up, but I had some, I guess you'd call it neon pink and screaming yellow. And so you can also use that if you as flagging, to mark your, if you put an emergency shelter, you can use the bright color to mark where you're at. It's 3M Transpors. It's a medical tape. It's good for blisters, and I use, it's a medical tape. It's Hypafix, and it's real thin and flimsy. So if you get blisters on your toes, you can just cut a piece of that and wrap it, and you don't even notice it's down there. And I carry Band-Aids and a few things. I carry aspirin just because everybody I ski with is pretty much old, and if somebody has heart issues, you can give them aspirin and it might help. And other uses for a SAM splint is it works pretty good as an insulator for a stove. If you're not using it for medical, you can, in a shelter, you can put it down on the snow as a insulation. And fire is, the mountaineers have fire on their list. I think of it as an external heat source, because when I worked out in the woods, we used to build fires sometimes for lunch, which was more of a recreational activity. You get some foresters and they're always wanting to light something. But building a fire in the winter is not easy. It can be done, but if you're out there on an unplanned event, you really don't want the hassle of trying to build a fire. And if you build a fire that's hot enough for you to actually benefit you, and you're standing in snow, it's what happens when you apply heat to snow. It turns into water, and now you tend to get wet. And if you're building the fire under the canopy on a tree, the heat goes up, it melts the snow drips on you, gets you wet, eventually falls on your fire, then your fire goes out, and now you're standing there without the fire and you're wet. So my thing is, an external heat source. So I usually carry 4 to 8 of these hand warmers, and and you can just, they last 7 hours. You put them in your armpits and it'll warm your arms, warm your core. When I did search and rescue, I used to get these ready heat vests that if we were dealing, if you just had to be there for 4 or 5 hours with a patient, you put that on and you stay warm. Because for me, some people are different, but for me, if I'm not moving, I can't put enough clothes on in the winter to stay warm. I have to be moving or have some heat. And in an emergency shelter, these they used to be called plumber candles, and now I've seen them listed as 9-hour candles. They're kind of little short, stubby things, and in a little shelter, you can light that and save the batteries on your headlamp, and it actually, it doesn't put out enough heat to keep you warm, but every little bit helps. And what I discovered is I have this little jet boil, and I used to carry this little half-liter bottle of water as kind of emergency water. Well, I put on the scale one day, and this thing full of water weighs 4 ounces more than the stove does with fuel. And with this thing, I can melt at least a gallon of water and boil it, put the hot water in here, and now I've got another heat source. And the best way to warm up is to drink a hot liquid. I mean, that will start getting you warm. So so I don't always carry this, but anytime I'm starting to think, well, this outing is pushing it, or if I'm going with a bunch of people I don't know, I take a stove and I can make hot water. And then a repair kit. The only thing in here that I really hardly ever use is spare baskets. And I've never put a spare basket on my ski poles, but I've probably in the last 10 years put 6 of them on other people's. Because I don't know whether you've ever had a ski basket, but I've tried it. You might as well put the ski pole on your pack, because the only thing it's going to do is make you fall over. The other big one are these ski straps somewhere. I learned this on an outing one time. I always used them just to hold my skis together, and they've got a lot of uses. Let me go forward one. If you, the old 3-pin boots used to separate a lot, and you can clamp your ski boot to the ski. If you get somebody that gets really tired, you can wrap these around their skis, and their skis won't slide. But that means now they can walk out. You've just turned their skis into snowshoes, and they can walk out. They're not going to slide and fall down a hill. If they're going up a hill, they get more traction. Used it one time. Somebody's zipper broke on their pack, and we had, I think, about 4 of these, and we just wrapped it around and held their pack together. So there's lots of things you can use. The old 3-pin bindings used to fail. All the screws were real close together, so they had a lot of torque on them, and they would pull out. And so if you have a little bit of steel wool and some binding screws, you take a little bit of steel wool and shove it in the hole, and then it gives you something to screw the binding into. And then that's one of those at the beginning I talked about, monitor and modify. If you have equipment failure and you fix it, that's the point where you turn around. You don't say, well, we're 2/3 of the way up to the top of the peak, let's go on up. You're just going to compound your problems. Like Maxi Glide or some type of liquid wax you can put on skis if the skis start clumping up. Again, this is one of those preventative things. If you do that at home, you won't have to do it in the field. And one of the issues when you do it in the field, and the skis are sticking because the bases on skis are actually porous, and you get microscopic moisture in those pores, and then it freezes, and then the snow sticks to it. And it's not fun when your skis get that way. And so if you do it at home, you probably won't have to do it out in the woods. Duct tape fixes lots of things. I usually have a little, it's a mini Leatherman tool. It's got pliers. This is a little ratchet that's got a bunch of different bit heads on it it'll fit any kind of head on any binding, I think. And like I say, I carry it, and I rarely ever open it, but it's there. And I have a different kit for when I'm teleskiing versus touring, and a different one for AT, because I've got different gear that I need to be able to fix. And then nutrition, energy bars, gels, chews. The gels aren't that great in the winter because they get cold and they don't flow very well. Trail mix, nuts, jerky, dried fruit, chocolate, and if you're going with me, bring enough to share. Sandwiches, leftover pizza, but you want stuff that doesn't require preparation. Uh, and and avoid items that get hard when it's cold. The original energy bar were power bars, and in the winter, I mean, you could chisel asphalt with those when they got cold. There was no way. I took them one time, and it was like you couldn't eat them in the winter. And you want to take food for your trip, and you want to have some food in case you do have to stay extra. And hydration, I like taking hot liquids. Hot liquids, tea or hot chocolates is really nice when you're out skiing. And you can also, if you start running a little, if it looks like you're running a little low, you can, if you got a lid, you can pack snow in the lid, then pour the hot liquid in, and or if it's the first drink that's too hot to drink, you put snow in it, and it extends how much you've got. And again, if you've got a stove, you can make your own water. Although on an outing, I would never take the stove just to make water for an outing. It's there for emergencies. But if you have a stove for overnight, I have little packets of Gatorade. You can take hot chocolate. I think they still make Tang. I don't know. I haven't seen it in the store for years. Or instant coffee, whatever you like to drink. And then the big one that you need to plan for is if you're staying overnight. Oh, did you?
Just back one.
Yeah.
If you rely on a camelback, the tube will freeze. You can blow the water back, make a camelback, which will help some. But seriously, think about make sure you have something else.
Yeah.
Super cold.
Yeah, I don't use. I'll use them sometimes in the spring, but I've had insulated covers for the tubes, insulated covers for the head. I do the blow it back thing, and it still freezes. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, we got 10 minutes, and I'm getting close. So for shelters, I take a space blanket, and so what I do is I take the grommets that come with it, take those off, reinforce it with duct tape, put bigger grommets, and then I take shock cord. And if you push, let me go back. Yeah, and so it works pretty well that way, because otherwise, if you just use those little grommets they've got and put like parachute cord, the first puff of wind will rip it out. The other one I haven't tried, but I know some people who've practiced with it, is you take the fly and the tent poles from your summer tent, and if it's a freestanding tent, that you can clip the poles in, and the fly will keep its shape. You can kind of dig a hole and put that over the top, put your skis, stake it out, and I kind of measured it, and I think my one-person tent from the summer, I could probably get 4 people under it, sitting up. And I always take, let's see, where is it? I've got, this is a space blanket, bivy sack, and this is a smaller version. It's made out of Mylar. This one would be really easy to rip. This one's a little tougher, and again, I I take this if I'm feeling lucky that day, and I take this if I'm not quite sure. And just I've got a sill tarp that weighs like 9 ounces, and again I put shock cord on it, so I've got some place to stake it out. And one of the method that I've always planned on if I have to spend the night is, over at the side, I kind of weighed everything, and I probably had, it's somewhere around 5 pounds of gear, but some of that is stuff I would take no matter what. But I look at a hillside for 2 reasons. One is I want to be sitting up because you have fewer contacts with the snow and you can do stuff. The other one is cold air is heavier than warmer air, so the coldest air is going to go to the bottom of the hill. Like if you were to spend the night in Dutchman Flat versus 30 feet in elevation up on Tumalo, there's probably a 20-degree difference. And you take your skis or snowshoes and you pack out a little sight, and then take your tarp or whatever and draw your your digging limits, and you want to have at least about 6 inches overlap. And this requires having a shovel, and you can pass this around. This is a shovel. You don't want to get the $5 shovel at a big box store. You want to get a real shovel that weighs 16 ounces, and it's so light that there's just no reason not to take it. And then you just start digging. If you've got a snow saw, it makes digging easier because you can cut out chunks and then toss the chunks, or you can cut chunks, put on the side if the snow's not that deep. And just keep digging. And one of the big keys is that unless it's real critical to get in the shelter, like if it's raining or somebody's injured, you need to get in pretty quick. But otherwise, take your time and dig this pretty nice, and dig at a pace where you get warm, but you don't get sweaty. Because then it's much easier to stay warm than it is to get warm. And so just take your time and then kind of test it out. The day I took these pictures, the snow wasn't that deep, but you want to make it roomy enough for you, but the more space you have in it, the more space you have to heat. But test it out. I make a little bench, put a place out for my feet. If I was going to spend the night, I'd make a little spot for my stove, and then you put your tarp over it. And what I do is I put the skis across just to hold the tarp up, because if it's snowing and you don't put something there, it's going to just sag. But you can, if there's a snag, you can break off branches. You're not supposed to cut limbs off trees, boughs and stuff. But if it's an emergency situation, do whatever you need to do. Cut some boughs, put them on the ground where your feet are to help insulate. And then, we dug 2 of them. We used skis on this one to anchor it out. But then you get in and you wait. And the day we did this was up on Vista Butte, and it was kind of a nasty day, and it was windy. And I got in there, and I was in there for about an hour, and I didn't put all my jackets on, and I actually stayed pretty nice and toasty. And I had lunch, and we talked, yelled back and forth across. But with the space blankets, you can make it wide enough to get 2 people. It's going to be cozy. but and down by your feet. And if you've got a stove, every time you light your stove and melt some water, you're going to be putting some heat in. And I've never had to test this, but I did build a shelter similar to this one time, winter camping, just to kind of try it out. I used a bigger tarp and made it bigger and made a platform for my pad and sleeping bag. And so one of the things, this is the way I do it. And there's dozens of different ways, and just, see what other people do and pick what works for you. And one of the things is on an outing, while you're sitting around, just ask people, what do you, name one thing in your pack that you really like, that, is like your favorite thing. And that's how most of the gear I have is all stuff that somebody else had. And I saw it and thought, wow, I like that better than what I'm using. And, and just to ask other people, what kind of emergency gear do they have, and why do they carry it? And you get a lot of things. And then the big challenge, I always challenge people this, is at lunchtime or just sometime on an outing, just pull everything out of your pack, put everything on, and just sit there for an hour, to kind of simulate you just got hurt. Sit there for an hour, and then at the end of an hour, start evaluating, like, okay, now what if I had to stay here another three hours or 24 hours? Would I be okay? And that's kind of what motivates you to have that gear. And I know Sue did search and rescue, and I've done search and rescue. So, and she and I probably carry the two biggest packs, because we've seen what happens to people when they don't have the right gear. And so, it's always best to learn from someone else's mistakes if you can. And just, before you go into the backcountry unprepared, ask yourself, how lucky do I feel today? And other than that, go ski safe and have fun.